Like everybody followed along last year? Did you try to plant anything? You did? Huh? Okay. Yeah. Okay, so we're up to Likkutei Parshas Behar, Daf Mem, column 2, all the way on the bottom. I think we're at the last line. Again, Likkutei, on top it says Behar, it's Daf Mem, column 2. In the English, it's page 79. The middle of Perek Beis, yeah. Almost finished Perek Beis. So let's just remember the Hemshech, the theme that's being developed here. Like every Maimer, it's a very deep Maimer, and it's structured step after step after step. So all the pieces, all the moving pieces are essential to understand and appreciate and internalize, which is the most important part, all the ideas and truths that Alter Rebbe conveys here. So today's class is dedicated by Rabbi Yosef Halevi and his family. Thank you very, very much. So chapter 1 was dedicated to the idea of Kol Doidi Doifik Pischili Achaisi. Open up, an opening inside of you, even if it's Kechudei Shal Machat, even if it's like the edge, the point of a needle, in order to be able to experience Achaisi, the connection, like a brother and a sister, where two, even though they come out as different people, but essentially they begin in one source. And in this he explained is the way how tzaddikim experience it, emes lamitoi, with the full truth, is the way it's experienced as the Beinani, which is known as Svas emes, not emes lamitoi, but Svas emes. We discussed that. From Perek Balef, he goes into Perek Beis, and he discussed also the reason for the blockages. Covered over, that love, that connection is covered over by all different types of animal soul survival experiences, which can include, it can be fear, it can be anxiety, it can be, of course, different types of cravings, addictions, inclinations, that block and put in jail that incredible organic flow of love, of alignment. And that's what a Leiv Nishbar means, where we have to not break the heart, but open the heart. So when it says Leiv Nishbar, a broken heart, sometimes people misunderstand it as you have to break your heart, like crush your heart so you have less emotion. It's the other way. Leiv Nishbar means you open your heart. If there's a wall, I have to break through the wall to open a wall, because the light is on the other side. Like it says in Shashirim, Hinei ze oimed achar kosleino. It's behind the wall. He doesn't bring that in this Maimah, but he brings it in other Maimah. So I have to open the wall, I have to break the wall in order to let the light come in, allow the light to come in. It's the crack, the Leiv Nishbar is the crack that allows the light to come in. The crack in the smugness, in the complacency, in the fear, whatever it is, in that blockage. That was the theme of chapter 1. Chapter 2, Perek Beis, he goes to Rayasi. Achaisi, Rayasi. What does Rayasi mean? Rayasi, the Medrash says in Shahashirim, it's a very astounding Medrash, Rayasi mefarnasasi. Hashem says, you're my shepherd, you're my sustainer. Yisrael mefarnasin lavim shebashamayim. Yisrael give parnasa, which means sustain, their Father in heaven. Which right when you hear it, what does that mean? It's the other way around. We receive what Hashem needs us. But that's what the Medrash says. Yisrael mefarnasin lavim shebashamayim. So the Balatanya explains what that means is when something feeds me, let's take food. When the food is mefarnes us, right? We need food to be sustained. No soul could live in the body without food. We need food, we need drinks, etc. So the uniqueness is that what happens is that the food becomes part of me, becomes absorbed in me, to the point that there's no distinction anymore. You don't look at yourself after digestion and say, here's me and here's the food. The power of food is that it's such type of food that completely becomes absorbed and integrated in the human body. And on the contrary, that is the sign that it's good food. What's the difference between nutritious food and not nutritious food? I don't mean to ruin anybody's breakfast over there. Probably the food is very nutritious. What's the difference? If you could sit at this table and eat one. The answer is very simple. Depends how much the food could become integrated into your body, how much your body welcomes it. I'm not talking about your taste buds. The taste buds have their own rules. But how much the body welcomes it. If I'm stuffing myself with certain types of foods, the body says atkan, and it's time to evacuate, it's time to eject. That's the whole concept of psoilus. The more the food is of such nature that it works with your body, it works with your bloodstream, it works with your energy. And certain people are more sensitive, more allergic to certain foods. That is what makes it a good food. To the point that it's indistinguishable, it becomes part of you, and therefore the body welcomes it, and it could really be converted into energy. So when it says Yisrael mefarnesim lavim shebashamayim, it means that Yisrael becomes one with him. K'lo yidach mimenu nidach. The word is mimenu. Nobody will be cast away from him. Or the Zohar says lishtava begufa de malka, to be absorbed in the guf hamelech, to be absorbed in the body of the king. How does that happen? L'cha'ira, a person is a separate metzias. So on this he said, the Zohar says that there's the tlas kishin, the three connections, Yisrael, Eraisa, and Hashem. Yeah, you remember this. And because of the Torah's uniqueness and greatness, so that allows the neshama to connect and be absorbed in Hashem on that level. Ashrei misha balakan v'talmudei biyadei, as the Gemara says. Fortunate is the one who comes there with his learning in his hand. He says, the same question you have on the soul, you have on Torah. The Torah also descended and is materialized and assumes physical ideas and is manifested in material themes and realities. Whether it's, he gives an example of tzitzis, tefillin, sukkah, and all of the laws connected to money issues, dinei mamonis, all the monetary issues, civil issues, civil disputes, and then all the tainus. Tainus means the complaints of one person, Reuven against Shimon, Shimon against Reuven, which is so much of what halacha deals with. So the same thing, you're saying the neshama is a yesh, the neshama is a reality. The Torah also comes down into things that are concrete. What do they represent in Gan Eden Elyon and Gan Eden Atachta? And this is really a very fundamental question. When you speak about Torah as a source of inspiration, right? And we all know this. I mean, a person could be learning for many, many years. Yeah. And it's holy, it's Torah. But sometimes they ask a question like, where is the divine connection here? So often, I'm immersing myself, and if it's real learning, it's a deep intellectual exercises, immersing myself in ideas and disputes and arguments. And very often you're dealing with a very, very technical, a very, very material, a very, very physical reality. And sometimes you're dealing with liars and proving that he's a liar and figuring out through a migui, he could have said, the liar could have said this, and because if he was a liar, he could have said a real lie, and because he didn't say a real lie, if he didn't, he should have said the big lie. Why is he saying a small lie? He could have gotten away with a big lie. Huh? Okay, right. And back and forth, and the way that Rashi learns it, the way Tosfos learns it, the way that Rashba learns it, the way that Ramban learns it, the way that Ram learns it. Huh? Understanding a liar, yeah. Understanding how a liar thinks sometimes. Yeah. Yeah. How he thinks and what he would have said and what he would have not said. So that's already, over here the question becomes stronger. Even tzitzis, sukkah, tefillin, lulav is not a liar, but still, you're talking about physical, very technical things. Very gashmistic things. How to build a sukkah, all the halachas of a sukkah. Where is there ain't soif here? Yeah? Certainly, when you're talking about dinei mamonis and tainus, here it's not just physical things. Here it's already, you're dealing with corruption. You're dealing with deviation. You're dealing with manipulation, with exploitation. There's a ganav here. Sometimes there's a ganav, not always. Sometimes you're talking about stam, let's say, debates or disputes between people. So for this, he starts off the whole explanation. What was the explanation? This was the main crux of what we explored. The pasuk says in Mishlei, Perek Tes, L'chu lachmu b'lachmi, ursu b'yayin masachti. Eat your bread with my bread. When you partake of your bread, make sure there's my bread there. L'chu means eat. L'chu from the word ichlu. It's like ichlu. L'chu, eat. It's not l'chu, walk, go. L'chu is we eat. Lachmu, your bread, b'lachmi, with my bread. Literally it means, put in my bread into your bread. The Mefarshim explain over there in Mishlei, this is Proverbs Perek Tes, that it's a mashal. What Hashem is saying is, why don't you enjoy my bread, partake in my bread? And this is a metaphor for Torah. That's what he's talking about over there. Why don't you bring Torah into your life? So why did he say, eat your bread with my bread? He should have said, eat my bread. So the Mefarshim say, there's different explanations. He wants to say, take my bread, eat my bread. And then he says, drink the wine that I poured. Another metaphor for Torah. Torah is called either bread or wine. So the Rebbe says in these three words, l'chu lachmu b'lachme, we have the whole inyan. Just these three words, l'chu lachmu b'lachme. The chiddush is that Torah is, first of all, is compared to bread. Second of all, he says, eat your bread with my bread. And for this he explains that for bread to become a nourishing experience, it has to be absorbed in the limbs of the person, in the evarim of the person. Like we said before, food needs to be integrated. For Torah to do what it's supposed to do, somebody speaks to perform its magic, I don't know if that's the expression, but for Torah to be able to accomplish what it needs to accomplish, to be food for the soul, and food for the soul to the point that the soul can become completely one with the source, like we said before, li'ishtav, begufa de malka, it needs to be absorbed. It needs to be absorbed in the limbs of the soul, just like food needs to be integrated in the body. Torah needs to be integrated in the nefesh. That type of integration, to the point it becomes one. And then the person can be absorbed. The Torah becomes absorbed in the person, then the person can become absorbed in the source and the Ein Sof. He brings on this the pasuk in Shir HaShirim, and also chapter 5 of Shir HaShirim. Hashem says, Achalti yarim divshi. I ate my honeycombs with my honey. And here he's referring to again what I eat. What he eats becomes part of him. So that's the two stages. L'chu lachmu b'lachmi. First, it needs to become your bread. It's a very interesting interpretation. First, it has to become my bread. First, has to become your bread. What does it mean? It has to become your bread. It should become bread for you that goes completely into you, becomes part of you. And then you will become my bread. You will become part of me. So it's two stages actually. In order to understand all of this, he started to explain the whole process of that in the Malachas of Shabbos we have the Sidura de Pas, the way that bread is prepared. And this is important to understand because if the bread is not prepared all the way to the point that it's baked and edible, it's not going to be absorbed in you. If you start eating chaff or you even eat dough, it's not, the body is not going to accept it. So it's food, it has it, but it needs to go all through the entire process. And if you have sand in it and earth in it and pebbles in it and dirt in it, again, it's not going to be able to be absorbed. So you go through the whole process from plowing all the way to planting, to harvesting, all the way to grinding and to kneading, and then to baking. Generally 4 things: zriya, tchina, lisha, afia, right? Planting, kneading, grinding, you have to grind the kernels into flour, and then you knead the flour with water. It's called kneten in Yiddish, right? Lalush, lisha, is kneten, to knead. You know, when you mix the flour with the water, we have a matzah, so that way if you have in a matzah bakery or you bake challah in the house, so you know the process of kneading, and then you have baking. What does baking do? Baking takes the dough and puts it in fire, put it in the oven. And when you put it in the oven, now it's baked, now you have challah, now you have lechem, now you can eat it. And of course this includes the process, this is a metaphor for all types of foods. You can have it raw, but if it's not cooked or it's not baked, you can't eat it. So all this exists also in Avodas Hashem, and all this exists also in Torah, because Torah is lachmi, l'chu lachmu b'lachmi. In order to understand all of this, you're with me, this is the buildup of the Maimer. Every line here is precise. You can't go to step 2. It's like you can't bake if you don't knead, and you can't knead if you don't grind. And you can't grind if you don't harvest, and you can't harvest if you don't plant, and you can't plant if you don't plot. Same is true when you learn a Maimer. People want to get to the baking. So geht nicht so. In Chassidus Chabad, it doesn't go like that. It's boom. You have to plow, you have to plant. Huh? Yeah, milk doesn't come from the grocery. Yeah. You have to raise a cow. And then you have to deal with the cow. Yeah, MS. The same is true with bread. You come in the morning, everyone thinks, Shiner grows the matzah in his backyard, and he brings it here for Vasikin. Huh? Yeah. But every part of the process is exhilarating because it's essential. It's not like, when am I going to get to the baking? Kneading is important. Plowing, it's all right. That's the uniqueness of a farmer. The uniqueness of a farmer is he gets to see the cycle of life. The cycle of life is not baking the bread. The cycle of life begins in plowing the earth. That's the beauty of it. So the same is true also in Avodas Hashem. In order to understand all of this, so he says you have to explain how planting works. So I'm not going to now review the whole thing. You can listen to last year if you don't remember, if you want a chazara. But it's a very, very intricate and powerful explanation of the Maimer. But the main point in the mashal was that whenever there's planting, you always start with a seed. All you have is a seed. The seed came from a previous fruit. But what you have now is the seed. But this seed on its own is not going to do anything. You could look at the seed, you could take a picture of the seed, you could frame the seed, you could laminate the seed, you could put the seed in a safe, and you could put the seed in a beautiful kitchen counter on a shelf. It's not going to do anything. Bupkas. It's going to be a seed that will just remain a seed. When you put the seed in the earth, suddenly there's a miracle that happens. It's really a half of a fella, you look at the seed, there's nothing here. What's there? As he said, it doesn't taste good, it's scentless, it's tasteless, it's flavorless, it's colorless. I mean, it has a color, but not a very attractive color. Put it this way, all the animals and all the birds and all the insects are attracted to flowers because of the color, because of the scent, because of the flavor. What brings the bees and the butterflies to the flowers is, there's a dance there. That's why the flowers are the way they are. It's nature's way of inviting all these insects. And of course, when the insects come to enjoy the nectar, they can pollinate all these flowers. And when they pollinate it, everything can grow. But when the seed itself, what's there? Nothing. On the other hand, the seed is what you need to plant. And when you plant the seed, as the seed comes into the earth, in other words, it combines with a new reality, with the environment, the nutrients of the earth, the nutrients of the soil, and the soil itself. And of course, you need sunlight, you need oxygen, you need water. The soil needs to be moist. It has to be watered. It has to drink. It needs to eat and needs to drink. A seed that doesn't drink can't live. So the seed itself, as I said last time, has its own source of food. It's called the endosperm. In the seed, it has a source of food and it feeds off it. It feeds. It's like a little fetus, like a little baby plant that feeds off it. Later, it's going to develop its own food from the sun. That's after it comes out of the earth and the leaves come out. It's a process I said called photosynthesis. It turns sunlight into food. It's another incredible phenomenon, how the leaves know how to do it. I look at the sun a whole day, I don't get food from it. A little vitamin D and a suntan. But the leaves know exactly how to take the sunlight and turn it into a ganze suda. So the combination of the seed with the earth, this is where the magic begins to happen. What happens? The earth, somebody yesterday, when did we learn this? We learned Monday. So somebody asked artificial intelligence, based on this Maimer, who gets the credit for the tree? The earth or the seed? Yes, based on the Maimer. So artificial intelligence, I don't know which program he CBT chat, I don't know which one yet. They said it's very hard to say. It's very hard to say. On one hand, the seed has all of the genetic instructions how to grow, what to grow. You're planting an apple seed, you're going to have an apple tree. That's the seed. On the other hand, without the earth, and that includes all the elements connected to the earth, you have bupkas. So who gets the credit? Who gets the Nobel Prize for the apple tree? Who gets the Nobel Prize? But it was very interesting that artificial intelligence said it's very hard to say this. And the reason is because the DNA is in the seed. The embryo is in the seed. The endosperm is in the seed. And the seed has cells. It has living cells. Those cells have the genetic codes and instructions, what exactly needs to be developed in all of its details. And those few cells that a seed has, it's probably 8 cells, it's a few cells, duplicate themselves into trillions, it's half of a fellow, trillions of cells. They don't duplicate from 8 to 16 or 32, another 100 cells. You're talking about, as I said, one leaf has 30 million cells. A tree has trillions of cells, all from what? From the seed. But it's the magic that happens when it comes into the earth. And what happens when it comes into the earth is, what happens to the seed itself? The seed itself falls away, it decays, it decomposes. And he says, and that's the process. And the way he puts it here in the Lashon of the Maimer is that the bittul of the garin to the koyach hatzemeach in the eretz, the nullification of the seed in the vegetative, generative, producing power that Hashem invested into the earth, that's what makes it. That's what makes the growth. The earth has a koyach hatzemeach, but it can produce anything. It can produce cherries and blueberries and raspberries and kiwis and weeds. The garin becomes what's called halas man, halas mayin nukven. The garin gives, so to speak, the direction to the earth where to go. In our language, it gives the guidance to the earth what to do with this koyach hatzemeach, so that the earth produces a tree that's a replica that reflects the properties of the garin, of the seed, garin the seed. What's the shaykhis between the two? So he says, because the garin also comes from koyach hatzemeach. The seed itself comes from the koyach hatzemeach, but the seed itself is not spiritual anymore. It became concretized in a seed, and even though the seed itself doesn't have all of the luster and all of the flavors and all of the colors and all of the smell, but it comes from the koyach hatzemeach, so it has in it the koyach hatzemeach, the vegetative power, even though it's concealed, because it's just a seed and on its own nothing is going to happen. When it's put into the earth and it loses its physical identity because it becomes nullified in the koyach hatzemeach, so what happens is it becomes bottle to the koyach hatzemeach, it becomes completely part of it, and now the koyach hatzemeach produces through the seed all of the fruits with all of the luster and the flavor and the taste and all of the deliciousness that a fruit has. And as he put it, the garin itself has everything, but it's not visible, it's not conspicuous, it's all dormant and latent and concealed, but every nekuda that's going to come out of the tree is there in the seed. And through the bittul to the koyach hatzemeach brings out that full potential. So you're saying who's doing what? Who's the mashpia? Who's the makabel? Right? So you can't have one without the other. But the Likkutei is saying here is when the garin surrenders its physical identity to the earth, to the koyach hatzemeach in the earth, its true potential comes out. Paradoxical. If the seed wants to stay intact and say, no, don't. I'm not being buried. Sorry, I'm not being buried. I finally made it in life. Don't bury me. Nothing is going to happen. It's going to remain an alta fahakta, dried up, emaciated seed. It'll maybe stay like that 1,000 years. Dafka when you put it into the earth, so it gets concealed. You can't see it anymore. If somebody doesn't know how planting works, it's like, what are you doing? What are you doing? You're getting rid of it. No, I'm not burying it. I'm planting it. Right, in life, sometimes, as they say, a person could feel that they're being buried. He's saying here, you're not being buried, you're being planted. It's a very big difference. Being buried is the end. Being planted is the beginning. Offer atov el offer toshuv. Hashem says, Adam, you come from earth, you're going back to the earth. What he's telling Adam is, and that's why we don't cremate, because burial is not just burial. It's not only the end, it's also the beginning. It says in Svarim that burial is the beginning of Tchiyas HaMesim. It's not you put the guf, what do you do with the guf? So you bury it. When you cremate something, it gets destroyed. When you bury something, it returns to the earth. Anything that's buried, right, it becomes part of living soil that comes out and morphs into other forms of growth. But all of its energy gets converted into the earth. So it's the beginning of a new process. That's the difference between burying and planting. So on one hand, the garin, as he said, is the koyach hatzamech, but very betzimtzum. You don't have the luster of a fruit, but over there you have all the properties, and much more than in the fruit. The fruit itself has the hisgalus, it has the revelation of koyach hatzamech. It's geschmack. Nobody eats seeds. Usually don't eat seeds. We eat the fruit, not the seed. I'm talking about in fruit trees. You eat the cherry. You could swallow the seed of the cherry, but that's not what you serve. You don't serve for dessert the watermelon seeds. A watermelon has seeds. You may swallow it, you may not swallow it. But the watermelon, that's the dichus, the kiwi, the orange, the apple, not the apple seed. So where's the geschmack, where's the revelation, where's the luster of the koyach hatzameach in the fruit? But where's the atzmius? Where's the DNA of the koyach hatzameach? Putting in an apple into the earth is just going to be an apple into the earth. That's called burying. Putting the seed of an apple into the earth, that's called planting. But that only happens through the bittul of the koyach, of the current of the koyach hatzameach, which then allows the koyach hatzameach to perform. The magic happens by actualizing what was there in the garden. That was the main nekudah of the mashal. So you have the koyach hatzameach, which is the vegetative power in earth. You have the fruit, and you have the seed. Those are the three elements. What's the nimshal? What's the nimshal? The same thing exists in Torah. You have all three things in Torah. You have the source of the Torah. How did it all begin? It all began on Tuesday. Hashem said, Tache ha'aretz deshe esev mazriya zera eitz pri esev pri lemina. Let the earth, vayomer, it's one of the mamoris, it's one of the 10 mamoris, 10 utterances. Let the earth sprout forth desha. Desha means that which comes out of the earth. Rashi says all the grasses, everything that grows. Specifically, eitz pri, a fruit tree, but it's not just a fruit tree. Oisapri, it has the power to create a new fruit tree. How? Lemina, according to its species, because zarai bayt is a seed. Hashem could have created the first tree with beautiful fruits, but that would be the end. It would be the last tree too. But he put the seed into every fruit. That's the chiddush. That every fruit comes with the capacity to become a father and a mother. Without that, the fruit would be the first generation, the last generation. That's the biggest chiddush here. It's the zarei bay. It comes with the organs, with the ability to reproduce a new generation. And it's a whole process. Because how does the fruit develop in a way that it has within it the seed, and then the seed becomes fertilized in a way that it can create a new generation when it gets planted. So it has to make its way out of the fruit, and it has to make its way into the earth, and it has to become fertile in order to be able to do anything, and then a new generation happens. The word tache, it's brought in Svarim, he brings from the Shach, B'Shem Rabbeinu Shimshon, is eish das, which is the way Moshe describes Torah. Miminoi eish das lamai tache. So the beginning of everything is the koyach eliki, the divine energy which Hashem invested in the earth till today. It's not just it happened then on creation. It's till today. And it's still things that are incomprehensible to us. You know, we take it for granted. But just think about for a moment, just look at the miracle of the fact you take a seed, which at the surface seems like nothing, and suddenly when you put it into the earth and there's moisture and there's sunlight, It's like, whoa. And we have these fruits and we just eat them, we take them for granted, and they're delicious, and they nourish us, and they nurture us, and they give us the nutrients we need in order to produce our cells, in order to have our life. And everything is matched together, and somehow all of nature knew exactly what to produce and how to produce it, and in a way that it's going to feed animals and humans. Those who say that everything is just a mistake and it's blind mutations have a very hard time explaining how everybody is working in synchronization with everybody, and you're talking about trillions of forces. You can't get 3 Jews to work together, even when you're paying them $200,000 a year. You have to give bonuses and benefits just to have 3 people in office work together and not kill each other. Even God, yeah. And here you have not 3 Jews, here you have billions and billions and trillions. I can't even say the number because it's one like with 60 zeros and much more. And everybody's working in perfect synchronization to support life. And it all happened by mistake. Look at a teenager's bedroom, right? It doesn't become organized on its own. Every week it becomes more messy and more messy until you finally convince your daughter to clean up the room. You just have to promise a trip to Israel or whatever it is. But somehow this universe, it stays with this organization and synchronization, and it's all by mistake. Naturally, there's something called the entropy principle. Entropy, I think it's called, right? Naturally, things disintegrate. If your room is a mess, it's not by mistake becoming organized tomorrow. It's becoming a bigger mess tomorrow. And the next day, a bigger mess. By the time a year happens, suddenly the socks decide, you know what, we belong in the drawer. We belong in the laundry. Somebody has to do it. And that's just one little bedroom. So when you see all of this, it's really hafla v'fela. What's the nimshal? So the nimshal is the Torah, you have the source of Torah. That's an example, that's the nimshal for the koyach hatzameach in the earth, the divine energy in the earth, which is the source of everything. It's the source of the tree, it's the source of the seed, it's the source of the fruit. That's the source of Torah, which is chachmasa shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is pure Ein Sof. He calls it here ayin, because it's not tangible. I could touch the earth, but I can't touch the magic of the earth. How do you do that? I can't touch that. Chemistry, this is one of the biggest challenges in science today. When you have chemistry books, you can't understand chemistry if you don't feel the emotion of chemistry, if you don't see the art. The art is always something intangible. And because today there's such a drive to introduce atheism wherever you can, so all chemistry, a lot of chemistry books, especially in high school, they're stripped from the magic. You want that students, when they learn about DNA, they should go, wow! But they took out the wow. Because if you say the word wow, you may have to mention that there's a God. What's wow? Whoa, 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 it's not wow! After 26 billion years, it should be DNA. What's the wow? What's the wow? The wow is a religious experience. The wow is an emotional experience. Even if not a religious, it's an emotional experience. There's a wow, right? We touch the earth. But the fact that sunlight somehow has a conversation with earth, that has a conversation with water, that has a conversation with the seed, that has a conversation with the temperature, and they produce the apples in my house, that's ayin. That's a koyach of ayin. Even from a logical perspective. That's not I don't know how to speak to the earth. I speak to the earth all day, doesn't do anything. I don't know how to speak to water, I don't know how to speak to sunlight. And somehow these guys know how to have a perfect conversation. Not just conversation, it's a communication of life forces. And together, how hard is it to make one shidduch in Monsey? And just to get 2 people to live in one house. And here, they are not just communicating, they're giving energies to each other and saying, no, let's work together to produce an amazing planet. And it happens every millisecond of history without anybody noticing. They don't ask anybody. They don't ask, thank God, they don't ask the United Nations or the State Departments, because you know where the world would be if they asked them what to do. They just do it. All this is a reflection of ayin. Ayin means not that it doesn't exist. Ayin means that there's something transcendent. There's a transcendent, intangible energy, but it's the source of everything. And that's the koyach eliki called tache. Tache are the Dutch. Eish das. Eish das means a fire is from the least tangible things in our world. And das represents Torah. So the source of Torah is ayin, it's Ein Sof. Ein Sof doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It means it's no thing. It's not a thing. You can't define it. The Zohar says, Antu Chakim v'lo b'chachma yediyah. You are a Chacham, but it's not the Chachma that we define. What we define as Chachma, as intelligence, there's speculation, there's analysis, there's scrutiny, there's intellectual. We call this is an idea. We have already a grasp what Chachma is. Say, this guy is a Chacham. This idea is Chachma. It says, Antu Chakim, but v'lo b'chachma yediyah. It's not Chachma that we define as Chachma. Why not? Because it's the source of Chachma. And therefore it's Ein Sof. That's the Torah in its source. What's the seed of Torah? The seed of Torah is the way Torah becomes concretized in this world. And here, when you look at it, you don't necessarily see the flavor, the taste of pure Elokus. On the contrary, you may be thinking, you see logic, but it's logic about two people who are trying to deceive each other, and two person, you have a lender and you have a borrower. One is honest, one is inauthentic, and we have to figure out what Torah says about this halach. Or how to bake matzah, or how to make tzitzis, or how to build a sukkah, right? Or how to plant seeds. So what we're seeing here is earthly, concrete things. This is a mashal for the seed. The seed comes from the koyach hatzemeach. The seed has in it the koyach hatzemeach. But what do you see in the seed? And if you don't plant it, what is it? It could just be a physical thing. What does this mean with Torah? A person could learn Torah their whole life, but without the earth, and without sunlight, and without the warmth, and without the environment, they don't get access to what it really is. It's a seed. That's why it's so important to learn Pnimiyus HaTorah. Because Torah itself sometimes can be experienced as just very technical and even boring, irrelevant, like many people do. The Gemara even says in Tainis that somebody who's not Zoiche, the Torah can even become Samamavas. It can become poison. How can Torah become poison? It's not that the Torah is poison, Chas v'shalom. The Gemara says, Nasa loy Samamavas. For me, it could become poison. That's the opposite extreme. So what's the seed? The seed is the way it becomes concrete in a very physical way. It has physical properties. When you look at it, you don't feel divine bliss. Really, in its source, it's ayin. It's a lakus mamish. The way it comes out is, down here, it assumes very physical things. And again, a person can learn 10, 20 years and there's a dryness, like a seed, it's dry. You're shaking your head too intensely. There's a dryness to it, or a boredom to it, or a monotony to it. Huh? Yeah. One doesn't see the music in it. And even if there's intellectual music, which is great, it's intellectual music. But it's like, it could be intellectual gymnastics. It's intellectual music. It's nice, it's geschmack. But the soul of it, the depth of it, the infinity of it, the Ein Sof of it, the lakus of it. Then you have in the middle, you have the fruit. What's the fruit? The fruit, he says, that's the Torah, the way it comes down in Olam HaBriya, Olam HaYitzirah, the higher worlds, what we call Gan Eden. Over there, you have the divine bliss of Torah. That's like the fruit. Because the fruit does reflect the power of the Koyach HaTzemeach, but it reflects it in a way of yesh. You can't, a pri is a yesh. I can touch it, I can taste it, I can seal it, I can feel it. The magic of the earth is not tangible. The Koyach HaTzemeach, the divine energy that says tache, again, when we relate to chemistry, we relate to the concrete part of it. Even when we go deeper with microscopes and we could see chemicals, and we could see atoms, but we're always looking for tangible things. We're not looking for ayin. And there's a reason we're not looking for ayin, is because the search stops, because there's a sense of awe. The Tzemach Tzedek writes that the difference between the Rambam and Aristotle was, interesting, he says Aristotle was looking to understand the yesh in everything, and the Rambam was looking to understand the ayin that precedes the yesh. And he says that's why one of them became more arrogant through his scholarship, and the other one became more humble through his scholarship. Whenever we relate to the yesh of something, also our research, by the way, why is it that so many Jews are Nobel Prize laureates? Why is it? It's not a mistake. It has to do with ayin. To really understand the yesh, you got to go out of the box. As long as I'm looking at yesh from the yesh perspective, I'm also stuck in its paradigms. From the place of ayin, you could think completely different, because ayin is no thingness. Einsteinian way of thinking, or different ways of thinking, Jews have a disproportionate impact over there because of the nature of their soul that's rooted in ayin. They have a sensitivity to go higher than the yesh, to go before the yesh. So when you're talking about the fruit is a yesh. But what type of yesh? It's a yesh that reflects so much geschmack, and that's the Torah in Gan Eden. Torah in Gan Eden is pure bliss of infinity. But it's the way the bliss is comprehended by neshamas of Gan Eden, by souls. Right? And that's what Limud Torah in Gan Eden is. The whole Torah we learn here, we learn in Gan Eden also. There's a sugya, for example, in a lot of my modern Likkutei Torah and Bechlal and Chassidus, they'll take a sugya in Gemara and explain the whole thing, how it's learned in Gan Eden. There's a story about Metzia. It's actually now in Daf Yomi. I think maybe today or tomorrow. The pays. What anybody learns? Huh? The story with Beharis, with Rabbi Bar Nachmani. It's an incredible story. The Gemara says over there that if somebody becomes a leper, so they have a white spot. So if the white spot precedes the hair becoming white, Beharis kaidim l'seir love, and then they're tummy. But if the hair first becomes white and then they develop a spot, they're not tummy. What if it's a suffix? The kohen looks, there's a white spot on the skin, and the hair inside also became white, but they don't know what happened first. So the Gemara says it was a machlokes. Who? Kutchebrichu mesifta d'rakia. Hashem got into a fight with the yeshiva in Gan Eden. Kutchebrichu said tahar, and they said tameh. Hashem said tahar, and the mesifta d'rakia, mesifta d'rakia means the mesifta, the yeshiva, the high school, in paradise, in heaven, they said tameh. So now we need somebody to make peace. So the man noichach, who's around? Rabbi Bar Nachmani. Rabbi, he was... So the whole story there, and at the end, Rabbi ends up passing away, and b'shas he died, he said tahar. He agreed with Hashem. You open up a Rambam in Hilchas Tumas Tzaras, you know who the Rambam paskins like? Not like Hashem. The Rambam paskins like Mesifta d'Rakia. Huh? Yeah, the Kesef Mishnah says, Loi b'shamayim. Sorry. He disagrees with God. The Rambam paskins Tameh. So what does all this mean? First of all, what white patches are there in Mesifta d'Rakia? What are they talking about? White patches? A soul has white patches, has white hair. The whole concept of tzaras is a bodily experience. It's leprosy. It's a skin disease. So they're just learning in Gan Eden theoretics, like theoretical physics about things that happen on this earth. Huh? And what's it? Hashem gets into a fight with Mesifta d'Rakia and said, Hashem has one opinion, they have another opinion, they're fighting with God, like what they're telling him what he thinks. And then the Rambam paskins like them, and then you need Rabbi. In Likkutei Torah Tazri, it's one of the longest Maimonim. Alter Rebbe explains the whole inyan al pi pnimius. The whole inyan is a metaphor. So we learn it with a white patch. In Gan Eden, you learn the same sugya, but it's a gili of Ein Sof. It's the way he explains. There's Savo'u kalam and Mamale kalam, and Kutchebrichu is Savo'u, and Mesifta d'Rakia is Mamale, and Mitzat Savo'u, there's certain situations that are Torah. Mitzat Mamale, there's certain situations that are Tameh. And what does Beharis mean? Beharis means that there's no blood, it's white. That means there's no chachma. Well, ganze inyan over there. So over there you have the fruit of the eye, the fruit. What's the fruit? The fruit is the hisgalus of the koyach hatzemeach, the way it's in a yesh. Down here on earth you have the seed. But where is the DNA of the fruit? In the seed. Not in the fruit. The DNA of Torah, the DNA of Ein Sof, the atzmius is in the seed. Not in the fruit. The fruit is a revelation. The fruit is geschmack. We like the fruit more than the seed. But the koyach ha'etzem, the real power of tzemeach, where's the koyach ha'tzemeach? The power to reproduce is not in the fruit. The fruit is the fruits. It's the fruits of our labor. It's like you say, the fruits of your labor. It's the results. The seed and the koyach hatzemeach are really one, because the seed has in it that ability to create a new generation. Of course, it needs the earth, but the earth gives it into the seed, and then the seed can reveal it, and the earth helps the seed reveal it. You get it? So those are the three madregas in Torah. There's the source of Torah. There's a Torah in Gan Eden, on the higher frequencies. Gan Eden doesn't mean you take a spaceship and you go to Mars. Gan Eden is also here. Gan Eden is a different perspective. Gan Eden is when you put on the glasses of spirituality, you see spiritual frequencies, right? You can have a person sitting here, he's in Gan Eden. You have a person sitting here, he's in Gehenna. It says in Parshas Todos, when Esav walked into Yitzchak saw Gehenna open. When Yaakov walked in, he smelled Gan Eden. So the Asar Mamara says, everybody walks in with their Gan Eden and Gehenna. Everyone creates the avir of Gan Eden or Gehenna around them. Yitzchak is sensitive, so he sees right away. A person walks into the room and you could see Gehenna just walked in. Another person walks into the room and says, geschmack of Gan Eden. The seed doesn't make it. The seed makes it happen. Yeah. No. I was talking about the machloikas. The machloikas wasn't connected to this mime. I was just bringing out a mashal that Alter Rebbe takes a whole sugi in Gemara and he explains how they learn it in Gan Eden. That was just. I was giving an example. It wasn't. What's bad?
Because if a person wants to learn like they learn in the Gan Eden, so it's ahead of his time in a way.
No, we're not learning how you learn in Gan Eden. We're learning how you learn on earth. But we have to take the seed and put it into the earth. We like the seed, but we take the seed and we put it into the earth. And when the seed goes into the earth, it connects with the Ein Sof. That's the Vart.
No, I'm just saying, some people, just physical learning, or Talmud, or whatever you say, or it's ancient, it's stories, why do I need to know it? But because without the premise, without really
You're right.
the physics of it,
You're right.
What's the underlying high in there? So it becomes boring. So what I'm saying is just it's apparently a concern in probably here, right here.
It's not about blame. Let's put it this way. When somebody learns Torah and they can understand what we would call the physics of it, so to speak. In other words, the ayin of it.
It's one word.
You're right. When we can understand, so to speak, the physics behind it, it's a whole different type of Torah. It's a completely different experience. So what this really means is when you look at a seed, you may miss the whole point. You don't see what there is. The same is true in Torah. I could learn and learn and learn, and it's good. I have seeds. And I have another svara and another svara, another svara, another svara. There was a Yid who told me, he learned in yeshiva for many years, and then he left he left. So I asked him why. He gave me a very interesting metaphor. He said, you know what I felt like? I felt like we've been learning for 15 years a recipe book. You have a recipe, your wife has a recipe book, you know how you make those thick recipe books, how you make lasagna and kugel and kishka and pastas. Yeah, you know those recipe books. They're like 600 pages. And we read all the recipes. We mastered them. We were told to learn them by heart, so now we knew all the recipes by heart. And I would ask my teachers, is there a possibility for me to taste any of these recipes? No, we don't do that. That's like for big tzaddikim. We just talk about the recipes. And then he says, and then we have footnotes in our recipe books. What happens if you don't have baking soda? So then you could supplement it with another ingredient. Which ingredient? You could put in almond milk. But what happens if you don't have almond milk? Here there's a machlokes. One opinion says you should bring in another 2 eggs. The other opinion says no, better to keep out the eggs, right? And bring in another ingredient. But on this there's also an argument. Is it lechatchila? Do they mean it only lechatchila to do it? Or no, even b'diavad, it's also going to be fine. He says, that's what I felt my whole life. Pretty interesting, no? I'm telling you his experience. I'm telling you somebody's experience. I'm not telling you this. That's exactly what was frustrating him. He wanted to experience God. He wanted to experience ayin. He's a very sensitive soul. He's a big musician. He's a sensitive soul. Some people don't feel that void. He felt it. He knew this. He knew this food. Give me to taste the food. Give me a piece of cake for heaven's sake. Tamuru kitov Hashem. So the truth is like this. The garin, the seed, has everything inside of it. But you have to open it up. The earth opens it up. That's going to be the bittul. Right? We'll see in a moment. Every svara in Torah could be a migui of some guy who's lying about some woman who's lying about a ksuva, or some guy who's lying about a loan. If you take the svara of it, that's the garin. If you trace it back, you could take it back to ayin, which means every nikud, every debate, every svara, every logic, every halacha, every idea, if you unravel its full chemistry, the physics behind it, the energy behind it, the ideas behind it, you're going to touch Ein Sof. And this is not just an intangible, mystical, transcendent idea I just said. If you'll take any machlokes we once spoke about, the Rakatchaver would always do this. The Rakatchaver in his thoughts always did this. And the Rebbe in his sichos was very, very into this concept. You take machlokes between Beishamai and Beisilo. There's machlokes in, and hundreds of machlokes in, like 300. It looks like they're arguing about technology. Do you light 8 candles? Do you light 1 candle? Do you say Krishma at this time? Do you say Krishma at this time? Do the Jews leave Mitzrayim hid? It looks like it's just technical machlokes. If you look at the idea behind it, you can trace it back to more abstract states of reality, and suddenly 100 machlokes about different things, it's really one machlokes. It's just manifested in different forms. For example, it says in Svarim that the machlokes between Beishamai and Beisilo in the whole Shas, one of the machlokes is do you look at potentiality as reality, or do you look at actualization as reality? That's a concept. It's manifested in many, many different ways. But how do you look at reality? Where is that machlokes coming from? A deeper machlokes yet. How you define reality. So you can go deeper and deeper and deeper, and at some point you touch on the kud of ayin. And suddenly the machlokes, which may be about a very technical thing, they have a machlokes, for example, chalos dvash, honeycombs in a beehive. When do they bekabel tumah as food? When do they bekabel tumah? So Beishamai says Mishayaharer. When the farmer comes in and he thinks it's time to unravel it and bring it into the house, it's already mekabel tumah. Or another guy says Mishayaharcher, when he starts making a fire so the smoke comes to chase away the beehives. Beisilo says no, Mishayarasik, he actually has to crush them. It's a Mishnah in Uktzin, the end of Mishnah. So what's the machlokes? They have to argue about everything. You have hundreds of these machlokes. You're talking about honeycombs with bees. You're not talking about that. It's a manifestation. It's a seed that's manifesting ideas that are much more abstract, and you could discuss them philosophically, psychologically, emotionally, spiritually. And if you go deeper and deeper, you have the same svara in Olam HaYetzirah, in Olam HaBriya, and then in Olam HaTzilus, in Ein Sof Mamish, and it touches ayin. And then it comes down all the way into a very physical machlokes. But Torah loy b'shamayim, here you have the seed, here you have the DNA. In Gan Eden they can't paskin. In Gan Eden they can't paskin, they have the fruit, not the seed. And this is true about every nekuda in Torah. There's no nekuda in Torah that doesn't somehow at some point reveal the full bliss of Ein Sof in every particle of existence. And it comes out, by the way, in science and physics. There's no nekuda in the earth that doesn't reveal Einoid Mulvada. What are you talking about? I'm looking at a squirrel, I'm looking at a blade of grass, I'm looking at a leaf, I'm looking at a deer, I'm looking at a car, I'm looking at the moon. You're looking at the external form. If you want to look into the reality, you'll suddenly see a different universe. Today in science, they're looking for what's called the string theory. The string theory is the theory that unites and explains everything to see the whole world as a musical, like a vibration, like a string. It's literally like a divine vibration, and it translates into everything that we see. So who's right? The answer is, when you look at the chitzonius, I see a table. All I see is a table. I see a tissue. If you want to get to the pnimius, if you trace it back to the core, you'll see in this tissue and everything else, you'll see a achtos, you'll see a night mulvanda. It's just if you have to have microscopic eyes. The reason it's like that in the world is because it's like that in Torah also. Torah is a blueprint for the universe. So now let's see the Nekuda. Here he summarizes it. It's clear, everybody understands. You understand this, Inyan? I remember once, it was Sukkot. The Shir Rambam, they were learning Hilchas Niskei Mammon. Over there, there's the halachas of a Bekama Sher Tam and Sher Hamuad. If you have an ox that gores another ox, or another animal, and it kills the other animal, or damages the other animal. Kills the other animal, let's say. So if it's the first 3 times, it's called a Tam. So you pay Chatzi Nezek, you pay half. If it's already 3 times, it's called a Sher Hamuad, you have to pay full damage. Why? Because you're responsible. You have a wild ox, protect it. Usually oxen are well behaved unless they're wild. So the first 3 times I didn't know that my ox is going to go and jump on your ox and kill it, so I pay half the damage. That's the din Sher Tam Sher Hamuad, Parshas Mishpatim. It's a sugim b'bekama. The question is, if you have a Sher Hamuad, can it go back to being a Sher Tam? Or not? So the answer is 2 things can happen. If you give it as a gift to somebody, you sell it or you gift it, so it's now in somebody else's property, or you discipline it. You put your ox under training or your dog under training until it changes its nature and it becomes again benign, it becomes docile, what's called. So the Mefarshim say, I understand if I retrain it, but if I give it to somebody as a gift, how does the halacha change? So the answer to that is because animals are sensitive, and when they see there's a new owner, they're like, we got to figure this one out. It's like the first day in school with a new teacher, So in Mela, you have an opportunity to give a different message to the animal. It's very interesting. So the Rebbe was talking about this, and he gave this explanation. And then he said, every halacha you also have in Pnimius. Every person has an animal inside of them. But there's 2 types of animals, a Sher Tam and a Sher Hamuad. A Sher Tam is, all of our animals get out of hand. They go crazy. They get out of whack, and they gore. You come home, you lose it. But you chayav only Chatzi Nezek. But once it happens 3 times, this is already, now it's already Nezek Shalom. Now it's, your behemoth has a serious problem. This is what we would call, it's a habit, it's a routine. You understand? 3 times a week. It's like somebody takes a drink once in a while. Okay, maybe not be the best thing, but if you're drinking every night, you know what I mean? Fine, you went to a simcha, you had a drink, but if you're drinking every night, it's already not a Sher Tam, you're a Sher Hamuad. A person loses it sometimes. Okay, we have moments of weakness, you could do tshuva. But once it's a Sher Hamuad, it's already different. So he says, but how do you change the nature of a Sher Hamuad? So one way is you have to push it, rework it. You have to sit with your behemoth and retrain it. He says, but Allah is mechadish, the Rishus Meshana. Rishus Meshana is the moment you can take your behemoth and surrender it to Hashem. Give it over to His Rishus. And the behemoth knows it. The behemoth knows it. And something changes. That's what real surrender means. You give it up. I don't have control over you anymore. I give it up. So here you have a halacha. It's mamish about a shoy. But it's really a halacha about a person's inner life. It's the same halacha. But it's the way the halacha exists in a higher domain, in a deeper domain. The halacha is not talking about the behemoth of a person, l'chayre, but it is. It just depends which frequency you're relating to it. So if you go deeper and deeper in every halacha, you could divest it from the levushim of physicality and look at the levushim of spirituality. And then deeper until you touch a place of ayin. And over there, it's infinite bliss. In Gan Eden, it's bliss, but it's bliss that's relatable to the soul. That's why it's a fruit. It's not the Kayach HaTzemech, which is pure ayin. So he says like this. V'zehu hazoyrim, the last line. V'zehu hazoyrim b'dima b'nina yiktzoyru. You know what, let's start 4 lines from the bottom. Daf Mem, column 2, 4 lines from the bottom. He's speaking about the Gan Eden. And then he says, Mashen can be Ridosa Lamatan is Gashma Atshay Nidav and Nigish Ba'inyan Atainik V'Seichel Elakus Kiyim Dinim V'Alochas Binyanam Gashma. When Torah comes down into our physical world, you could be in a place where you don't see or feel. Tainug and Seichel Elikus. The pleasure, the bliss, and the Seichel of pure Elikus, of divinity. You may say it's only dinim and halachas about physical, technical things. The pasuk says, that's a footnote from the Tzemach Tzedek. A reference is Ayma shekasav makamachid al pi hamayim beparshas bereishis daf chav zayin amid beis eselei ezechuli da Mishnah ein sham. Basically, look in another maimer based on what the Zohar speaks in Parshas Bereishis about eselei ezekenegdei da Mishnah. Basically, it's a maramakim that supplements this. There's a concept called ezekenegdei, right? Adam versus Chava. So this is the way Chava is taken from Adam, but she becomes a different type of person, but really they're one. So he says, da Mishnah in Zohar. What's the connection? Because Mishnah is the way, it comes from Adam, it comes from Adam Alien, but it comes into a different seer. Okay. Those who plant in tears will reap with joy. Right? It says in Tehillim, Hazoyrim bedima bedina yiktzayro. It says, Ki harei b'shas limudei ein loy tainug. Hazoyrim bedima, when I have the seed, there's no tainug here. I'm taking a seed, I'm putting it in the earth. Sometimes when a person is learning, they're not experiencing tainug elaki. They're not experiencing the divine tainug. But they're going to reap with joy. Because real learning is you take the seed and you plant it. The light of Torah becomes planted in the divine earth. Earth is like the mother earth. It's the source of everything. It's the ayin. So you plant the Torah in the Eretz Elyoina. In other words, the physical earth here is a mashal for spiritual earth, which is the mother of all. It's the mother of creation. Mame, Mother Earth we call it, right? We call it Mother Earth. The Gemara says in Shabbos, Dvar Hashem zu halacha. The halacha we're learning is Dvar Hashem. It's God's words. It's like the Koyach HaTzemech, Tatshe Aretz Desha. It's Dvar Hashem zu halacha. It's not a separate thing. God said this halacha. It's Dvar Hashem. What Beis Shammai says, B'Silas, the Bekiva, the Meir, the Shimon, the Rashi, the Tosfos, the Rambam. It's all Dvar Hashem zu halacha. And it's bottled like the seed, Lagabe B'chinas Koyach HaTzemech, which is Chachma. Koyach HaTzemech is the regenerative power of earth, which we said is the Koyach HaTzemech of Hashem. Tatshe Ya'aretz, the Ayin Eish Das, that's the Chachma, Hashem's Chachma. So this very Dvar Hashem, Zu Halacha, is bottled. When you put it in the earth, what happens to the seed? It becomes subsumed in the earth. It's really a reflection of the Chachma. What happens when you put the seed in the earth? It grows. What does it produce? It produces the tree and the fruits. What's this? Schar mitzvah mitzvah. You see, every word is b'dig. The Mishnah says in Pirkei Avos, schar mitzvah mitzvah. The reward for a mitzvah is a mitzvah. What does that mean? The Alter Rebbe teaches like this. The reward of the mitzvah is the mitzvah. We look at it. The reward of a mitzvah is, I work for you, now give me a paycheck. The reward for my work is money. No. Schar mitzvah is mitzvah. It's the mitzvah. So what's the reward? The reward is that you'll actually see what the mitzvah was. That's what it is. The reward for the mitzvah is experiencing the mitzvah. That's what it is. So he says that's the whole Gan Eden. You know what Gan Eden really is? Gan Eden is seeing what the seed is. That's it. That's Gan Eden. It's in the seed. Gan Eden is, schar mitzvah is the mitzvah. The seed has it, but in the seed it's concealed. Hazorim bedima. Bedina yiktzoyru, why are you happy when you harvest? When did the happiness start? When did the yiktzoyru start? When you planted. It's just when I planted, I just saw a seed. That's all I had. When I harvested, this is the seed. Oh, wow. Nice grapes here, nice clusters. This is a vine, this is a seed. You get to see the seed. That's what schar mitzvah. The schar of the mitzvah is the mitzvah itself. But the mitzvah itself is the mitzvah. Schar mitzvah is you get to see the mitzvah. The curtains open up and you see what grew. That's what it's schar mitzvah. Gan Eden alien should tzaddikim yoshim v'nenim as Shechina. Gan Eden alien is where tzaddikim sit and bask in the radiance of the Shechina. Umisangim ba'asagasam asagas alakos. They have the bliss of comprehending godliness. Sha'asaga hi b'chinas yesh me'ayin v'ziv ha'adam ha'ayra shal ma'ila b'koyach hatzameach. This light, this comprehension in Gan Eden is yesh me'ayin. It's a spiritual yesh that comes from ayin. It's a ray and a glow from the divine light b'koyach hatzameach that's invested in the koyach hatzameach, and now it comes out in the fruit. So who produces the fruit? The garin, the seed. Hazoyrim bedimah. The seed has in it the Ein Sof. When the seed goes into the earth, when the seed becomes bottle, to the Chachma, to the Chayach HaTzemeach, what's produced? Gan Eden. In other words, Gan Eden is just experiencing what you did in this world. That's what we mean. Every person walks with Gan Eden. Gan Eden is not a different life. Gan Eden is just seeing reality. That's it. It's seeing reality. Schar mitzvah is really the mitzvah. Who creates the fruit? The seed. It's not a different thing. The fruit is the Gan Eden of the seed itself. You see what's in the seed. There's nothing that happens in the fruit that wasn't in the seed. Everything is in the seed. V'hainu ziv teirosam v'avaydosam mamish. You know what Gan Eden is? Gan Eden is the light of their Torah and Avodah mamish. Shu k'mei l'mashal ha'keich hatzameich shematzmiich kein hagara. Gan Eden is like the koyach hatzameach that produces something that's similar to the seed. It's ziv teirosam v'avaydosam. The fruit is not separate from the seed. The fruit just tells you what the seed is. Gan Eden is experiencing the bliss of your Torah and your Avodah. The Torah and the Avodah, that's the seed. And Gan Eden is the light that shines from it. It's the experience of the Torah and the Avodah of this world. Ziv, Teirasam, V'Avedosam, Mamish. As we said, that the Koyach HaTzemeach produces that which is Ke'ein HaGarin. It comes from the Garin. It's similar to the Garin. It's Schar Mitzvah, which is from the Mitzvah itself. V'gufei halachas gashmis and b'chinas halas ma'yin nukvan l'gabei chachmas yitzaynis barach ha'malabashim b'dvar Hashem zu halacha. And the very physical halachas that we're learning, that's like the seed. Halas ma'yin, you put it into the earth and it triggers, it arouses the chachmas yitzaynis barach, Hashem's will and wisdom which are manifested in the dvar Hashem zu halacha. Just like we said that the seed itself has the whole koyach hatzemech inside of it. And that's why the Garin brings it out. So the guf, the halacha that I'm learning, maybe a very gashmizdik halacha. What are you learning? You're learning here something that is really, at its core, pure Ein Sof. And completely one with the source of Ein Sof. Because this Ein Sof, Chachmas Hashem, is in Dvar Hashem Zu halacha. And when I bring that into the earth, it triggers that Koyach HaTzemech, it brings it out, it comes out. So what happens? Gan Eden is produced. And it's but there's one condition. When you plant something physically, nothing will grow until the seed does not decompose. It decomposes, it loses its identity, it changes from its essence. When you're looking at a tree, you don't see the seed anymore. The seed completely morphs into something else. The seed coat falls away, and the embryo itself becomes something else. It's a different mohus. It doesn't look anymore like the seed. You don't look at a tree and say, oh, I see the seed. And it becomes absorbed in the earth. Only when the seed is ready to forfeit its whole ego and become one with the earth can it create this miracle. The same is true with a person. All this happens when you take the seed and you put it into the earth. What does this mean in a person? When the person is ready to surrender their own sense of separateness, their own sense of ego, I deposit my spirit in your hands, which means I'm ready to become one with Eretz HaElyona, with Mother Earth, with Hashem's Malchus, with Shechina Suzi. This is what Mesiras Nefesh means. Mesiras Nefesh means that a person is ready to surrender that sense of separateness, where the seed retains an ego, to completely become absorbed in Shchinas Uzay, in the oneness of the Ein Sof, that's what allows the garden to produce the tree, because it becomes one with the Koyach HaTzameach. And that allows the Torah that you learn in Olam Haza to become absorbed and one with the divine earth, just like the Koyach HaTzameach in the seed fuses with the Koyach HaTzameach in the earth, and that's where the magic happens. The Koyach HaTzameach in the seed on its own is latent. The Koyach HaTzameach in the earth is ayin. When the two Koyach HaTzameachs meet, the seed meets with the earth, so now the Koyach HaTzameach of the seed becomes completely bottled to the Koyach HaTzameach in the earth. The Koyach HaTzameach in the earth now shows it what it is. You're not a seed. You're a tree. You're infinity. You can create something for generations, and it brings it out. In a person's life, it's the same thing. The Torah itself could just be a seed. When I take that seed, as he says, the Torah Shalom Ad Ba'olam Haza becomes completely one with the ayin, the Koyach HaTzameach in the earth. Now it produces Schar Mitzvah Mitzvah, the whole light of the fruits, which is what the Gan Eden is. And it begins with the person itself. It's true about the person going into that space and the Torah going into that space. From this, a person needs to meditate how to learn Torah. When a person learns Torah, it should always be like the feminine waters that are ascending, that are looking up to arouse the masculine flow, to arouse the Chachma Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. V'lo yasa ha'tofel ikar. Don't make the tafel, don't make the secondary primary. What does this mean? Don't create your whole magama. Don't focus your whole magama. Your whole life as a Jew is only seeing the Torah the way it's dressed up in physical garments. The Gemara says in Yevamos Kuftes, somebody who says, I have only Torah. Torah. Even Torah he doesn't have. What's pshat? If a person says, I don't care about anything, Torah. Even Torah you don't have. Why not? At least say you have Torah. You don't have anything else, but you have Torah. What's pshat? So usually the taich is, a person needs Torah and a person needs Gemilas Chasadim. It's called menschlichkeit, kindness, mitzvahs. The Rabbi here says a whole new word. This is the Alter Rebbe. If you say Ein li ela Torah, what do I have more? Ein li ela Torah, I have only this Torah. You don't even have this. When you strip Torah from its Ein Sof, you don't have it. You don't have it. It's like sometimes a person says, right, I have nothing besides this. The problem is, when you say that, it means you don't even have this because you don't know what it is. When a person does not allow themselves to appreciate the atzmius of Torah, the pnimius of Torah, the core of Torah, afilu Torah ein lo. So when I say all I have is, what do I need more? Yet levushim gashmim, it's all technical, physical stuff that I think and I understand and I feel good about it because I'm an intellectual giant and I have gewaldige pchiyas and chrifas and maybe I'll become a gadol hador one day and maybe I'll get tremendous covet and certainly have olam haba and it's geschmack and I don't need anything else. I feel the Torah in, you don't even have the Torah. I'm holding on to a seed which has everything inside of it, but I don't have access to it. I don't know about it. Why? I'm missing its core. It's like looking at a seed and saying, I don't need anything else, I just have a seed. Huh? So I put the seed in my pocket, I walk around, I feel good, but you're missing the whole koyach of the seed. You don't understand even what the seed is. That's what he says. I feel the Torah in it. So what should I put my heart to? He's saying not to ignore the levushim gashmim. The Alter Rebbe wrote a Shulchan Aruch. The whole Shulchan Aruch is about levushim gashmim. But to be able to put your heart to the pnimius of elikus that's manifested in it. which is a manifestation of its source, which is divine wisdom. Velisa velitin b'dibure shel makom. You should know that when you're shmoozing in Torah, lisa velitin means maso matan. When you're shmoozing in Torah, you're talking God's words. It's dibure shel. It's a different derech. It's a different approach. It's dibure shel makom. First of all, it's a different respect, it's a different awe, it's a different reverence, it's a different humility, and it's also a different richness. It's a different experience. You're talking dibure shel makom. You're not stam talking seichel and svaris and fakert. It's dibure shel makom. Can you appreciate the divine physics here? There's divine physics here. There's divine frequencies here. Of course, I'm not going to get all of it, but it's a sensitivity. It's an approach. All I have is the Torah that I see. You don't even have this. You don't know what you're talking about. You're stripping. It's like you see somebody and you see a person, right?
You see basically a dry seed, 2 years old, 2,000 years old.
Yeah.
But unless you put it back into the moment where it can actually...
Yeah. So I can have a seed that's 2,000 years old. It has in it unbelievable koyach and DNA, and it's alive in that sense. But if you don't put it in its source, you don't put it back in the proper environment, afilu Torah, you don't even have the seed. All you have is the levush of the seed. You have the picture of the seed. You don't understand? You give it sunlight. You give it the light. You give it the earth. You give it the water it needs, and suddenly, now you have a seed. It doesn't take away from what you had before. It just enhances it infinitely. It's not like when you know this, you don't have the levushim gashmim. You still have the seed, but you have the real seed. You have the full seed. You have the totality of the seed. You see your child. Child is dressed up in this beautiful, delicious coat. And you say, I need to hug you. And you hug the levushim, you hug the garments. Only one problem, the child is not inside. It's like a stuffed doll. So you're hugging the garments. I love you, I love you, I love you. I don't need anything else. I just need you. But you don't have it. It's not a good mashal because over here the child is there. But the point is, I'm holding on to the levushim. It is a good mashal. He says, unfortunately, it's a good mashal. So I have the levushim, and it's a beautiful levushim. I feel a Torah ain't lie. Ki halacha zu hi dvar Hashem v'chachmas yitzayim alabashim. But this halacha is the dvar Hashem, and Hashem's chachma and ratzon are manifested in it. V'azay hu limudei b'bchinas mayin nukvin o batal agabe chachmas yizbarach v'hayu lachadam mamash. And then when you learn this way, it's like the seed going into the earth. The seed becomes batal to the earth. It's a mayin nukvin. It's halas mayin nukvin. It becomes batal agabe chachmas, and they become one. There's no difference anymore. The person, the seed, the person and the Torah that he's learning, he's putting it into the earth. What does it mean putting it? And it gets covered by the earth, and it gets subsumed in the earth, and it becomes bottled to the earth. So the person does it. The nukva here is the person. The nukva is the makabel, the recipient. Yeah, the garin is ma'oida, the kayach hatzameich in the earth, which is the mashpia. Yeah, so this is, and as we'll see, this is how it becomes Rayasi. This is how we become Rayasi. He's going to continue this. Be'ez Hashem will continue tomorrow, Thursday, 7:45. Everybody have a beautiful, meaningful, and elevated day. And a freiliche Pesach Sheni.